The NFL season is here. What's going on, bottom line viewers? It's Mitch here for your complete, full, and final 2021 NFL season predictions. In this video, I'm going to go division by division, team by team, and break down how I see your team performing this year, giving you their final record projection and prediction for this season, as well as how they will finish in their division, in the conference. And then ultimately, I'll look at the playoffs, go through the seeds, break down the matchups that I see happening down the road in January and in February, and then eventually getting to my Super Bowl champione. So we will get to that, the Super Bowl champs, later on at the end of this video. But before we get started here with the complete, I'm talking complete, final. This is the video where Lenny goes back and he edits all my little words to make it into a montage that I got wrong, okay? This is the Patriot line view. This is the Buccaneer line view, the Lion line view. I don't know what he calls it nowadays, but this is the video that you can take my word for it, that you can take what I say and you can say Mitch was right or Mitch was wrong, and I will stand by that in this video. Here we go. It is the 2021 NFL season predictions, guys. But before we do get started with the NFL season predictions, just a couple things that I have to say. So first off, appreciate everybody supporting me going into another NFL season. If you do want to support me to the next level, we do have a Patreon for this channel. Patreon is where you can support me and also get exclusive content that is not found here on YouTube. Now, throughout the off season, I finished school in late July, and I felt like I was way behind. So I tried to do my best to come back and deliver as much content as I possibly could, but I just wasn't able to, and I just wasn't able to get every single video out that I wanted to. But that being said, I still actually recorded a few of the videos that I wasn't able to edit and put up on YouTube. So what's going to happen, guys, is on Patreon, there's going to be videos that I didn't post on YouTube that I intended for YouTube. They might be a little bit less edited, but I'm just going to dump them on Patreon. So if you're interested in getting like my front 7 rankings, for example, that's a video that I did that I didn't post on YouTube because I just couldn't edit it. That will be on Patreon for $3 a month, right? And then on Friday, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through every NFL roster in a really in-depth style, depth charts, all of it, give you my roster rankings, which is another video I intended on doing, which I couldn't do. So that is going to be on Patreon Friday. This whole weekend is going to be full of stuff that I just couldn't put up on YouTube to preview the season. So go check that out. Link is in the description. We also have fantasy content on there. We have also gambling content on there. And you can also follow us on social media at TheBottomLineView on Instagram, at Mitch Milani on Twitter. On Instagram, Ultra just recently put up his power rankings heading into the season. So guys, check all that out. Make sure you do Gronk spike that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and let's get to these season predictions, all right? So, let's kick it off with the AFC East, as we always do. I think we always do this, you know? So, let's start off with the AFC East. The way that I see the AFC East going down is there are 3 teams that I think are competitive in the AFC East. I like the Buffalo Bills, once again, to be a good football team this year and enter the playoffs in the AFC. I like the New England Patriots. We'll get into how exactly much I like them. I also like the Miami Dolphins. I think there's 3 teams that are legit in the AFC East. This is the strongest AFC East in quite some time, you know, from top to bottom, I would say. And not only that, but I feel like all of the franchises are actually competent now, which is interesting because the Jets maybe were talented at times, but never competent. Now I feel like even the Jets are competent, and we'll get into that. The Jets are the bottom team, but we'll discuss how I feel they could improve this year and have some potential this year. So let's get to the New York Jets, and let's kick it off with the New York Jets. The New York Jets are a football team that led by Zach Wilson, I think has a bright future, but I just believe given the strength of this division this year, it's going to be very difficult for them to have a great season, a beyond expectations type of year, right? I wouldn't expect playoffs if you're a Jets fan. I would just expect improvement under the new coach, Robert Saleh, and the new quarterback, Zach Wilson. I think Zach Wilson, as Tony Romo put it, and as I rated him, my number one quarterback entering the 2021 NFL Draft. I stand by that ranking, although I will say Mac Jones is kind of on his heels. But I will say Zach Wilson just does look like a stud. He's lived up to expectations so far in terms of the ball that he throws, just the way it comes out of his hand, the accuracy, the pocket presence, the movement within the pocket. And overall just has that charisma on the field that you want from your quarterback that I don't think we ever saw from Sam Darnold at a young age. So we're already seeing strides from Zach Wilson that we never saw from a guy like Sam Darnold. Now, supporting him is a much better offense than Sam Darnold ever had, to be quite honest with you. You look at the offensive line, it's a solid offensive line. I don't think it's as bad as it used to be by a long shot. Mekhi Becton could be one of the best left tackles in the NFL. If you said at the end of the year that Becton was the best left tackle in football or one of the best left tackles, he went to the Pro Bowl, he was an All-Pro, I wouldn't be that surprised. Elijah Vera Tucker, I was pretty high on in the draft. I like him at left guard, right? You brought in a competent right tackle. That's my favorite word today. Morgan Moses, who's not going to get burnt very much and is a solid overall player. You still have some weaknesses at right guard and center, but I don't think it's nearly as bad as it used to be. So protecting Zach Wilson, you're going to be a lot better. I am a little concerned to see who's that running back going to be. I think it will probably end up being a combination of Ty Johnson and Michael Carter by the end of the year, but Tevin Coleman is going to get the start. I'm just not a big believer in him. Elijah Moore could be a breakout wide receiver for you. He's a dynamic playmaker, good route runner, just with the ball in his hands. He's elite, and Odell Beckham even spoke very highly about him, so that tells you how good he could be. I also believe Corey Davis has. Corey Davis is the other guy that I expect to have a big season. I think he's going to be a real great signing for the Jets. I think Corey Davis was just one of those players that took a little bit of time to mature, but I think he has truly developed into a number one wide receiver and will be the go-to guy of Zach Wilson from day one. But this is another receiving core that's improved. Jamison Crowder's still there. I've always liked Keelan Cole as a complimentary option. So the offense actually has a lot more potential. And then it's under Mike LaFleur. Mike LaFleur, who, of course, the brother of Matt LaFleur, is going to bring that Kyle Shanahan scheme, that Sean McVay scheme. They're going to run a lot of outside zone running plays and then boot off the play action with it. Now, we'll see if he's quite Matt LaFleur, Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan. I don't expect him to be that, but hey, he's spoken very highly of by a guy like Kyle Shanahan, so that tells you that he probably knows what he's doing. But overall, even in the preseason, I just saw a big improvement from the scheme, from the offense in general, from the competent offense. That's, again, another competent in there. Defensively, it was a big loss. Carl Lawson was a huge loss, man. Absolutely huge loss, but it's not as devastating now because Shaq Lawson is there, right? Shaq Lawson replaces Carl Lawson. You traded for him. I like him as a player overall. He's not as good as Carl Lawson. Carl Lawson, I felt, was going to be a double-digit sack player for you. Now, you might have to wait a year for that. But Quinnen Williams and John Franklin Myers are absolutely a devastating duo inside. I think a lot of people are going to be surprised when they play the Jets defense because they're never going to get pushed around. Sheldon Rankins is in there. A lot of big guys up front. And then they also have Vinny Curry, who's a pretty good player still and was productive for the Eagles last year. So you have a good front four. CJ Mosley's back, who's going to be the commander of the defense. Marcus May is a very good player. You just really have to worry about the cornerback position. The cornerback position is awful. It's really bad. It's one of the worst cornerback positions, quite honestly, guys, that I've ever seen in my entire life as a football fan. I've never seen a depth chart in the last 5 to 10 years where I had to struggle to think of who their number one corner was. That's embarrassing. Bryce Hall is their number one corner. Maybe he could be their breakout, but their number two, their number three, I think they're relying on rookies, guys that have never really played. I do think LaMarcus Joyner will end up being kind of a home run veteran signing for you back in this scheme, but we'll see how it goes defensively in the secondary. As long as you can get pressure, I think you'll be okay. But I don't think this is going to be a great defense just because of the cornerback play. Overall, though, the New York Jets are a team that I think will be competitive week in and week out because they, again, guys, are now a team that I feel are not going to be just embarrassing. So on that note, their record for this season will be 5-12 in my opinion, and their ceiling is 7-10. I think their ceiling is 7-10. That means Zach Wilson is kind of like the Justin Herbert of last year. He wins Rookie of the Year. You know, he's putting up points, he's putting up yards, but they just don't have the all-around team to match him. That would be their ceiling. Their floor is a 3-14 team, a team that can't protect Zach Wilson, a team that the defense is just a disaster in the back end, and that would be the 3-14 type of team. And then their over-under, because I know you gamblers are out there, you want to hear what the over-under. I'm going under 6. If I had to guess, I would take the under 6. And the reason I take under 6 is because, okay, the division. I think it's going to be very hard for them to win over 6-7 games. I think taking the under would be the smarter bet because Miami's going to be good, as I've stated. New England's going to be good, as I've stated. And Buffalo, we know, is going to be good. So those are my predictions for the New York Jets. Let me know yours in the comment section, Jets fans. Let's move to the Miami Dolphins. The Miami Dolphins are a team with high expectations entering this season. A lot of people really like them. I know a lot of people were really digging the Miami Dolphins, you know, after last year, entering this year, expecting a big jump. I think what they've done to support Tua has been ideal at the wide receiving position and wide receiver positions. They have probably, you know, when you really look at it, one of the more underrated receiving cores in the NFL, from Will Fuller, Devontae Parker, and Jalen Waddle. The potential there with that trio is very dynamic. If Will Fuller doesn't pull his hamstring, if Devontae Parker doesn't have a groin injury, if Will Fuller doesn't get suspended, and Jalen Waddle stays on the field, this could be an absolutely awesome wide receiver group. I'm just joking there, but not really. You know, like, those players are really good. Devontae Parker's a jump ball guy. Will Fuller's a field stretcher, and he showed you that he could be a true number one last year, and he's still very good. I mean, I have nothing against the guy. He's just kind of unreliable. Jalen Waddle could be the breakout superstar wide receiver of this class, given his speed and his skill set. And Mike Gesicki, don't sleep on him. He's maybe, you know, the third or fourth best route runner at this tight end position in football. Doesn't block, but doesn't need to. The offensive line is the main issue for me. It's the main weakness to me. The offensive line is a huge question mark. Austin Jackson absolutely stinks. I think Hunt is good. I like that they tried to throw bodies at this position and tried to throw bodies at this group, but I just don't know if it's enough, to be honest with you. Like, I don't know if what they did this offseason was enough. I would have liked to have seen more draft capital invested. You know, probably given that they signed Will Fuller and they have Devontae Parker, I almost feel like if they would have went offensive line early or tried to trade back, you know, maybe get a receiver in the second round instead of the first and take an offensive lineman in the first, maybe that would have been the ideal approach there. But you never know with Miami. They know what they're doing so far under Brian Flores. And speaking of Brian Flores, their defense is going to be absolutely awesome, I think. Their defense, I think, will be better than last year, which last year, it mostly got by with turnovers, right? They turned the ball over a lot. They caused a lot of pressure. They busted pipes. They got interceptions, forced fumbles. Honestly, I don't see that happening. It's just not really realistic for them to lead the NFL in forced turnovers 2 years in a row. That just doesn't happen. But I do think the improvement will be like allowing less yards, you know, maybe even less points than last year. I think getting a Jalen Phillips on the edge could be huge for them. Their interior defensive line was young a year ago, and it could improve with Davis and Wilkins in there. I was a little bit head-scratching with the Bernardrick McKinney trade and then cut, but, you know, Flores knows his linebackers. He was a linebacker himself, so I would assume that he knows what he's doing there. And I think, speaking of linebackers, Baker is pretty darn good and underrated himself. Van Ginkel stepping in for Van Noy will be interesting. Byron Jones, I think, honestly, like, gets hated on too much, I think, from certain Dolphins fans, and you know who I'm talking about, Kevin Durkant. I think the fact that he does most of the time lock down his guy and make quarterbacks throw to the opposite side of the field, that's where Xavier Howard really gets all those picks, because Byron Jones, if he's taking that first read away or that number one guy away, you focus your attention on Howard now, you throw it up to Howard, and Howard makes a play on the ball. So I think the secondary is good. I'm not sure about Justin Coleman. I just haven't seen him play well in a number of years. He didn't play well in Detroit. He was hurt a lot. I'm not sure if they have that nickel position on lockdown there, but they've got the Canadian at safety and Holland, who I know has a lot of potential, but Jason McCourty will hold it down until he grows into that potential. And I'm not sure about Eric Rowe, but he does have man-to-man skills as a former corner. So the defense is good. It's almost like a less impressive Patriots defense, but it's probably going to be in the top 10 this year, and the reason why they're winning games more than anything else. So for Miami, what will my record be for Miami? My record for Miami is 9-8. So I've risen a little bit on Miami, given the preseason, given what I saw from Tua. Just overall, the quarterback position was a huge concern for me early in the offseason. But seeing Tua in preseason, seeing the ball pop out of his hands, the hip surgery, getting a little bit more just back and healthy, I think that's definitely improved their stock in my mind. So the offense, I think, has a lot of potential to be pretty good if they can protect him. I'm just concerned that they cannot protect him on a consistent basis, and I'm concerned that they'll be too reliant on Tua at the end of the day, because their running game with Myles Gaskin and this offensive line is not going to be super dynamic. So my record prediction is 9-8. Ceiling would be 11-6. This is if there's a massive jump from the offensive line, a massive jump from Tua. Of course, they have good defense. I could see an 11-6 type of season. I could see them competing for the division in certain instances, but I don't think that's probably likely. The floor prediction is 6-11. Okay, so they are a team that I think has a high ceiling, but also a low floor, because their quarterback is one of their weaker positions. Their offensive line is one of their weaker positions. They could be very one-dimensional. All these questions are very, very big in my mind, and that's why they also have a floor that is low. But that would be a very negative take to have. I think they end up somewhere in the middle, which for me is 9-8. If I had to predict, I would take the under 9 wins. Again, because this division is going to be very competitive. I think they are a team that is a lot kind of lucky last year. They were kind of lucky last year in terms of getting 10 wins, and their schedule is going to be a lot tougher. So that being said, I would probably, if I had to bet money on it, I'd probably bet the under 9. But the Dolphins, 9-8 for me. So the next team is the New England Patriots, of course. So the New England Patriots, guys, the Patriots had an incredibly interesting offseason. The Patriots spent the most money in the NFL. Bill Belichick, dollar bill, spent it all. He went for Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry to bring back the Boston tight end party to New England, right? He has an offensive line that is arguably the most talented in football. I won't call it the best, but it might be the most talented when you look at Isaiah Wynn, and now you bring back Trent Brown, the big monster, the fridge. You got Onwenu, who I always pronounce his name wrong, David Andrews, and Shaq Mason, the Diesel, up front. These guys are big maulers, and that will set the tone for their offense, right? But they also signed Nelson Aguilar in the perimeter to stretch the field. Probably the most underrated deep threat a year ago was Nelson Aguilar for the Raiders. Jacoby Myers came into his own a year ago, and they're expecting a big jump this year, but they also signed Kendrick Bourne. Defensively, they signed Kyle Van Noy. He's back. They brought back Dante Hightower from the opt-out list, right? They got Christian Barmore in the second round, who a lot of people felt was a first-round pick. They got Josh Uche going into his second year. They got Kyle Duggar going into his second year. They've got a loaded secondary. They brought in, of course, Matthew Judon, who looks like a home run signing. So there's a lot more that I missed, but this is a completely rebuilt team. To expect the Patriots to be anything like they were a year ago would be flat out wrong, disgusting, and ignorant. in my opinion. Right? They are not that team from a year ago. Okay? I feel this year they are going to be closer to the team that we saw in 2019, which was a dominant defense, sporadic offense, somewhat frustrating. But I do feel in 2019 what they didn't have that this team does have is a strong offensive line, elite offensive line. They have elite tight ends. They have a unique way of playing offense. Now, they don't have Tom Brady. They have Mac Jones now, which I'll get to in a second here. But they at least have an identity on offense, which they never really had in 2019. So they'll be a mix of that type of team this year. So New England overall, I feel, is going to dominate defensively for a majority of the year. I tweeted earlier, they led the NFL in hurries last year. They didn't have a pass rush last year, right? Look at all the guys they added to their pass rush. You get Gilmore back in week 7. Down the stretch, November, December, January, this could be the best defense in football. They could be one of the best rushing attacks in football. And of course, we know that the way that they attack you will be really, really hard to stop for a lot of teams. A lot of teams can't defend 2 top 10 tight ends and a good slot receiver and a running back like James White out of the backfield. It's very difficult to find those type of matchup players. And Mac Jones has come along faster than anyone would have ever thought. Faster than I would have even thought, which I was like the highest on Mac Jones in the world. So like, for that to happen is incredible. If Mac Jones can be an early career Tom Brady, this is a double-digit win team. This is a playoff team. There's no doubt about it. There's no way around it. There's no debating it. And I think he can. He's an incredible decision maker. Throughout the preseason, and I understand it's the preseason, but throughout the preseason, he had 0 turnover-worthy throws, which means he protects the football, which means he processes well, which means he will make the right decision for this team. And understanding that this team in year 1 will not rely on Mac Jones to win games, he will only help them win games, right? He'll only be an aid, not necessarily the crutch, not necessarily the guy, okay? I believe he can be the best rookie quarterback for this team this year, and I think he's going to lead them to a successful season. He will have bumps in the road. There will be a game or two where you say, the rookie lost them the game. But given what he is and the player he is, it's going to be few and far between, guys. It's not going to happen very often. Okay, so when we look at New England, this is a team that's going to be a pain in the butt for every elite AFC team. And we'll get to this a little bit later on, but you know where I'm going. The Patriots will make the playoffs this year, okay? I have them at 11-6. I have them second in the AFC East. Their ceiling is 13-4, okay? So their ceiling is 13-4. Their ceiling would be Mac Jones is already a top 16 QB, which I think entering the year, he's already like close to top 20. And they actually have a passing game this year, which is something I'm not really taking into account that much. But that would be their ceiling. And of course, they have like the best defense in the league. That would be their ceiling. We know they have a great special teams every year, even last year. Floor prediction is 8-9. They just missed the playoffs. They're just a losing team. You know, Mac isn't quite what he's built up to be. Maybe there's some injuries to the defense or the offensive line or something of that nature. Their strengths, right? And they could be 8-9, maybe like third in the AFC East. Maybe Miami's better than I give them credit for, or possibly they're just not ready yet to compete. But it's going to be very, very difficult to see this team with a losing record, in my opinion, just because of the coaching. The coaching is phenomenal. You know, Bill Belichick, 7-9 last year with a CFL team. And they had Josh McDaniels, arguably the best pure OC in football. And I would take the over 9.5, guys. I think this is a 10, 11, 12 win team, more likely than not. And they will be competing for an AFC wildcard. And I wouldn't even be surprised if they were competing for the division. So New England will be very, very good, and we'll get to my prediction for them in the playoffs soon. But I have them at 11-6 this year. Next, and the final team in the AFC East is the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills, led by Josh Allen, went to the AFC Championship last year. I predicted them to go to the Super Bowl. I was off by a game, but I know I was higher than most on the Buffalo Bills last year, and it somewhat paid off. And I feel like last year, Josh Allen took the league by storm, but he didn't take the league by storm if you watch this channel. So I'm going to keep it real with the Buffalo Bills. You know, everybody says, I'm a Patriots fan this, I'm a Patriots fan that. Bro, I like the Bills. I like Josh Allen. Josh Allen was my guy in the draft a couple years ago, right? And I think the Bills are going to be good again. There's no reason to think the Bills won't be good again, right? They have a top 3 quarterback. And personally, guys, I know this might be crazy. If I were to say, like, right now, if I had to take a quarterback in the NFL right now today for this season, and I had nobody on my team yet, and I had no idea who my receivers were, I had no idea who my offensive line was, I had no idea who my defense was, I would take him second in the NFL behind Patrick Mahomes. I really would. If I had to choose from the list of quarterbacks entering this year with nothing around them, I would take Josh Allen. That's how high I am on Josh Allen this year. He is that damn good, and I think he's going to take over the NFL. I predicted him to be the MVP, and I stand by that. I think there's a couple other guys. We'll get to Tom Brady and, you know, Patrick Mahomes, obviously. But I think Josh Allen's at the top of that list because this guy carries this team. This team is a winning team with Josh Allen, period. It just is. As long as he's playing all the games, they're winning 9 games at the least. Okay? The offensive line is solid, but it's not fantastic. It's solid. It's not fantastic. The hope here, and this is the main theme with the Bills. This is the main theme for me with the Bills. They need to be better at positions that they already were decent at last year. So what do I mean by that? So last year they were decent at offensive line, but could they be good this year? Right? Like, they have the same players on the offensive line. Can the chemistry and the continuity lead them to being good on the offensive line? Maybe that means they have a better rushing game this year, a running game on the ground. Zach Moss and Devin Singletary. I'm not a huge fan of either guy. But if the offensive line's better, it will take the heat off of Josh Allen, and it will, you know, make them a little bit more balanced. You won't have to rely on Diggs and Beasley and Davis and Sanders all game to be an extension of your running game. You actually have a running game. So for the Bills, it's like, can they tweak those sliders to the point where, like, the offensive line goes from like 16th to 12th? Can they tweak that slider on their defense? Because their defense last year was not good for a majority of the year. Like, they weren't. They were not a good defense. At the end of the year, they got it going a little bit, and they ended up being somewhere around average. But that's bad for a McDermott defense. Like, that's not ideal for McDermott's defense. For McDermott's defense, you expect it to be top 10, especially with a lot of the talent that they have on the team, right? Like, I don't look at this defense and say, whoa, it's loaded with talent. But given what they were doing in 2019, given what they were doing in 2018 with Micah Hyde and Tre'Davious White and Jordan Poyer, like, you would expect their defense to be in the top half, and last year it didn't perform like that. Now, it could be health, right? It could be maybe they're aging on the defensive line with Mario Addison and Star Lotulelei, and now they get Star back, and they get, I believe, Harrison Phillips back, so they get some interior guys. They added Gregory Rousseau. They added a couple pass rushers in the draft, and Jerry Hughes is still good, but, like, is he aging? So, like, really the defense is the X factor for this team. Matt Milano was hurt a little bit last year. He's an awesome player. Can Edmonds take a jump this year? That will be important for them. And obviously, like, Teron Johnson and Levi Wallace are just okay, but can they be better than that, right? Can they be good? So last year, they weren't at their best defensively. Can they be better? That is the ultimate question. That is the ultimate X factor. From them going from AFC Championship to Super Bowl. Like, if the Bills are going to be in the Super Bowl this year, it's not going to be because their offense got better. It's going to be because their defense actually is good, which maybe we're not accounting for that much. So the Bills, to me, they've got a great floor. I know what they are. I know what they will be. They have a great organization. They've got a good coach, a great quarterback, and that is why I have them at 12-5. So I have the Buffalo Bills at 12-5. The reason for 12-5, I don't think they sweep the Patriots this year. I think the Patriots are better this year. They probably don't sweep Miami again. So that's basically the difference, right? So Miami, New England, the Jets, they're better teams. They swept their division last year, which is very unlikely in any given season by any given team. So I think they lose a game or two more. They also face a first place schedule instead of a second place schedule. So it's not really like they're worse than they were last year. It's just like they have a tougher schedule. They'll play better teams, and that's why they'll be 12-5. But the record in the regular season doesn't really matter for the Bills. At this point, it's all about the playoffs, okay? The ceiling is 15-2. This is Josh Allen's MVP. This defense is top 10 in the league. They're just destroying teams. They're the best team in the AFC. I could see a world where that happens. The floor is 9-8. As I said, as long as Josh Allen is upright, this team has a winning record, period. Even if their defense is a disaster, they'll still go 9-8. The over-under is 11. I would take the over. I have faith in the Bills. I think they're a team you can count on, you can bank on, and you can bet on. And that's why I go over 11 for the Buffalo Bills. All right, so that's the AFC East. I've got the Buffalo Bills first, the New England Patriots second. The Patriots will be in the playoffs. The Miami Dolphins third, and the fourth, the New York Jets. Guys, leave your AFC East predictions in the comments. We're going to move to the AFC North. Make sure you do Gronk spike that like button. Thank you guys for coming here and joining me live. Appreciate it. Make sure you do check out that Patreon. Got a lot of stuff coming on there. All right, AFC North time. So the AFC North, I think, is being somewhat overhyped this year. Overall, I think a lot of people are looking at it as the best division in the AFC. I actually don't think that's the case. I think the AFC North is the third, maybe second best division. Obviously, AFC South's the worst division in the NFL by a mile. But I think the AFC East is stronger than the AFC North. And I also think that the AFC West has a conversation, right? They could be better than the AFC North. That's pretty close overall. But I see the top three teams being clear. The top team to me is clear. We'll get to why in a little bit. Number 2 and number 3 are fairly close with the two teams. And then the bottom team is the bottom team, period. All right, so let's start off with the bottom team. And that is the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry, Bengals fans. I'm sorry, Bengals fan. Mr. Aqua out there, I appreciate you. But your team is not going to be good this year, bro. I just can't get behind the Bengals with Zach Taylor as their coach. I just can't. There's too many bad vibes about this team. The offensive line, Jamar Chase dropping the ball, Joe Burrow with his knee, the defense being not great, not bad, I just can't with the Bengals, bro. I can't. So, Cincinnati is not good. Not good. I feel the Bengals will be interesting, fun, a fantasy football team. I would like to draft T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, and maybe even take a shot on Jamar Chase. I would certainly love to have Joe Mixon, who I think is really underrated for some reason. I don't know why. He's super talented. The offensive line could be better. I think I'm going to enjoy watching Cincinnati this year because Joe Burrow, I think once he gets over that fear of getting hit in the pocket and once he gets over that, because that happens, I saw that happen, guys. I saw that happen with Tom Brady. 2009, week 1 versus the Buffalo Bills on Monday Night Football. They were losing to the Buffalo Bills and Trent Edwards by 2 touchdowns. Tom Brady got over it in the third quarter. He throws 2 touchdowns to Ben Watson. They win the game. That's when it happened. That's the same thing what's going to happen to Joe Burrow. I like Joe Burrow. I'm a Joe Burrow fan. I think he's a baller. But it's going to take time for him to get over that psychologically, not physically. All right? So the wide receivers are going to be good. I'm intrigued to see Jamar Chase if he can get his head on straight and figure this out because I know he has talent. I think the offensive line will be better this year. I think I've already said that, but I want to state it again. I think Riley Reif and Jonah Williams are not a bad duo at all at tackle. I think their interior has improved overall. And I don't think not taking Sewell was necessarily a bad thing. Defensively, I'm concerned about their depth. I'm concerned about, they lost Carl Lawson. They've lost Carlos Dunlap. They've lost Geno Atkins. They've lost a lot of guys. Billings 2 years ago. Like, these guys over the last 2 years, they've lost all this defensive line depth where they were actually really strong in the past. Now, I think the secondary is sneaky pretty good. Like, Mike Hilton was a huge improvement. I think Chidobe Awuzie is solid. Trey Waynes is solid. Von Bell is pretty good. And, of course, Jesse Bates is a baller. But the linebackers concern me with Logan Wilson, and I think Pratt will be the other guy playing the majority of the time. Like, I just don't know. I don't know if Trey Hendrickson is a true one-for-one replacement for Carl Lawson because he had one really good year and that was it. And I've seen it for Carl Lawson the last 2-3 years where he's really, really good. So, like, DJ Reader will help. He's back. Ogunjobi's okay. But I just think the Bengals will have, around the 20th best defense. Their offense could be exciting, but I think it will be inconsistent because of the offensive line play and because of the whole Joe Burrow thing. So I look at Cincinnati as just not having enough as a complete team. And I think after this year, they need to seriously consider moving on from Zach Taylor. Because if I was higher on the coach, let's say if this was Arthur Smith, I would be a lot more excited to watch this offense and this team. Even the defensive staff, I'm not high on. So a lot of it has to do with coaching. Cincinnati, I have 5-12 this year. I have their ceiling being 9-8. Now their ceiling is like if they have a top 10 offense and Joe Burrow's a baller, that's their ceiling. And they have an okay defense, let's just say. Their floor is 3-14. Their floor is like Burrow doesn't look like the same guy. Their offensive line looks awful. You could see it happening. Their defense just falls apart like they seemingly do year after year from injuries for some reason. They need a new training staff. I don't know. And the over-under, I would take the under 6.5, obviously. I have them going 5-12. I think this is honestly a decent bet. I think under 6.5 is pretty safe. Honestly, I would love to see the Bengals have 7, 8, 9 wins. I like the Bengals, but I just don't know if they can in this division. It's a competitive top 3, and it's going to be tough to get wins within the division. And then when you look outside the division, it doesn't really get any easier for their schedule. So this is a tough schedule mixed with a team that I just don't know if they have what it takes this year, but possibly soon. We will see in the future. The next team is the team that I was talking about, who is clearly, identifiably at the top of this division. And that is the Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns are clearly the best team in this division. I don't think it's close. A lot of people are picking the Ravens. I haven't really seen anybody picking the Pittsburgh Steelers, but a lot of people are still picking the Ravens. I don't see it, guys. The Browns, to me, have the best roster, arguably, in this conference. And I think people are sleeping on Baker Mayfield. I honestly think people are sleeping on Baker Mayfield. My bold prediction for the Browns is that their offense is top 5 in the NFL. Baker Mayfield is a top 10 quarterback this year. Odell Beckham is back with an underline. And they have a very complete team. I think the Browns are going to be very, very good. Okay? You look at the offense. Now, this is why they're going to be very, very good. They're entering the second year under Stefanski. Stefanski is an excellent coach. He is one of the best play callers in football. He has a perfect scheme for this team. They fit it perfectly. Odell, Landry, I love Donovan Peoples-Jones. I think this guy's a baller. I like Higgins. He's a solid player. They've got a lot of depth at wide receiver. They've got a ton of depth at tight end. Austin Hooper is a good player. Doesn't get enough credit. David Njoku and another kid, I think, is it Bryant? I'm forgetting about. The offensive line is probably the best in the NFL. Wills could take a step forward. He was a first-round pick last year. Some people had him as the best tackle prospect in the draft. He could take a huge step forward for them, but Teller played at an elite level. Batonio's an elite player. Tretter's an elite player. Conklin's an elite player. This offensive line's the best in the NFL entering this season, period. Nick Chubb's a freaking monster. And Kareem Hunt's the best backup in football. So this offense is really, really, really good. You couple it with continuity, chemistry, getting your best receiver back, and I think this could be a very hard offense to stop because they can run on you, they can pass on you, they can throw to receivers, they can throw to backs, they can throw to tight ends. That's the type of offense I like. It's not super flashy, but it just dominates and dominates time of possession, which I think is huge. The defense is pretty good. I'm not as high on the defense as some people are, but I like it. I think Myles Garrett could be the best defensive player in the NFL, and that includes Aaron Donald this year. Not saying, last year or the year before. Aaron Donald is pretty much gotten to his peak. We'll see if he can keep it up, and I'm not denying that he probably will. But Myles Garrett has that type of talent. He is arguably the best player at his position. He is a dominant force in all facets, and he can dominate a game. That's how good he can be. Jadeveon Clowney, I think, was a nice addition. I think people are a little bit sleeping on Clowney, a little bit. I don't think he's amazing or anything, but he's a nice complement to Myles Garrett, especially in the run game. He's going to set that edge really, really well. I think the biggest underrated player here is Billings on the defensive tackle position for the Browns. They signed him 2 years ago. He didn't play last year. Now, people are saying that they're weak in the interior. I don't think that's necessarily true because they've actually upgraded at both spots. Billings is better than Ogunjobi, and Jackson is better than Sheldon Richardson, in my opinion. Based on last year, based on recent history, those two players are better as starters than what they had. Their linebacker position is much better. They added Anthony Walker, who's a solid player, and J.O.K., the man, Connor McLeod's boy, the Joker himself. That guy could be a difference maker for them. John Johnson is a leader of the back end, one of the best safeties in football, one of the smartest players in football. Denzel Ward's a shutdown top 10 corner. They drafted a first-round corner in Greg Newsome. They've got Troy Hill, who's a top 10 nickel corner. They've got Greedy Williams coming back, who we forgot he existed. Ronnie Harrison is a solid, strong safety. This is a very good secondary, and it's a pretty good front seven. They can get to the quarterback. As long as they don't get ran all over, which is a tad bit concerning versus certain teams, they'll be a good defense. I think they're going to flirt with top 10 status on defense. And again, guys, it's another case where it's another second season under a coach. It's another second season under their defensive coordinator, as well as their offensive coordinator. So just expect improvement from continuity, from chemistry, from scheme recognition and understanding. And that's why I'm so high on the Browns. Plus, they just have this vibe about, they feel like they're it this year. Like, they feel good. When I talk about the Browns, when I look at the Browns roster, when I just overall analyze their team, they feel good. I never really thought I would say that about the Browns, but that's the case entering this year. So, my record for Cleveland is 13-4. I think they'll be one of the top teams in the AFC in the regular season. They could very well finish as the top seed, but I have them finishing as the second seed. Their ceiling is 15-2, guys. I think this is a team that, if they're 15-2, it's because Baker takes a step forward as a quarterback. Odell is back. Their defense is top 10. Their offense is top 10, and they just dominate. That's 15-2. Floor is 10-7. Their floor is really tough to see them being a losing team. It really is. They have too much talent and too good of coaching to really be a bad team. Plus, they have Case Keenum as their backup quarterback. And Case Keenum still can play. So, even if Baker gets hurt, I still feel like they're going to win 8-9 games. Or he can win a game if Baker gets hurt, is the point, right? So, I have them Over 10.5. I feel this is a pretty good bet to bet the over 10.5. I just feel good about this organization. I feel good about the quarterback. I feel good about the coaching staff. I feel good about where they're at. And I would bet the over for the Browns. All right. Next, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Pittsburgh Steelers are a team that has, similarly to the Miami Dolphins, I've come around to certain, narratives for why they could be better than I thought previously, but I'm not exactly all the way there in terms of 100% sold. So the Pittsburgh Steelers, Ben Roethlisberger's play during the preseason, although it was short, did impress me just from the arm strength, because that's the number one thing I need to see from an older quarterback, right? Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, any of these guys that are older, Drew Brees, right? We saw this with Drew Brees and Peyton Manning. Their arms just fell off out of nowhere. And it's like, whoa, this isn't the same quarterback. And you saw the regression coming. With Big Ben, and you see it with Tom Brady too. If you watch the Texans game in the preseason, he's just zipping the ball like he's 25. With Big Ben, he might not be 25, but he looks like he can still throw the ball well, throw it hard enough, throw it with enough strength, enough zip, to the point where I can feel comfortable about him as a quarterback. And that was something I wasn't sold on entering this year. He seems to be on a diet. He seems to be healthy. He seems to be ready to go. So that's good. Okay. The offensive line is obviously their biggest weakness by far on this team. Their offensive line it could be, okay at best, but it also could be a disaster and the reason they aren't a good team. There's so many new pieces with this offensive line. They're trying to work and fit it all together, and it's going to be real tough at the beginning of the year. But can they grow as the season goes on? I know, me talking to Jen Welter, Dr. Jen Welter on the Juke Pod, every week, she knows the offensive line coach and is spoken very highly of this offensive line coach. So knowing that has given me a little bit more of a positive buzz to understand that they might be heading in the right direction. Now, understanding that the Steelers' offensive line last year was good pass blocking wise, and it has been for quite some time, but run blocking was a disaster. It was really tough. So what I think they're trying to do is they're sacrificing a little bit of experience and a little bit of pass blocking expertise for a little bit more athleticism and a little bit more ability to open up holes in the run game. And that also comes with Najee Harris, who's their first round pick running back, who can do a little bit of everything. Now, some people are hyping him up a little bit too much. I don't think Najee Harris is a Saquon Barkley prospect. He's more like a Josh Jacobs prospect, but he's a good player and will instantly improve their running back position. Chase Claypool and Deontay Johnson are two breakout candidates at wide receiver. I think either of them or both of them could break out. I don't see Juju having a big year, but he's a solid number 3 for sure. And even at tight end, I think they've got some good pass catchers there with the rookie who looks pretty good. And then Eric Ebron, who's a big play guy, very inconsistent, but he comes and goes. And when he comes, he's a good player. So I think the offense overall is one that could fluctuate a lot. They could be a top 15 offense. They could also be a bottom 7 offense, given their offensive line play and maybe regression from Ben. But if it all clicks and it all goes well and Matt Canada and this new offense is going well, they could be a lot better than I think. So it's really tough to call. Defensively, I still think they'll be good. I still think they'll be top 10, maybe top 8. I don't quite see them being as good as they've been the last 2 years. I don't think they're going to be first, second, third, something like that. I just have too many questions about the secondary. Losing Bud Dupree, I think, was a loss for them, even though Melvin Ingram and Alex Highsmith also looks pretty good. But you have Tuitt, I think, on IR early in the year. And just losing Steven Nelson and Mike Hilton do hurt their secondary in my mind, even though they just added Akilla Witherspoon. I think Joe Schobert's a nice addition to the linebacking group as a coverage player. Devin Bush is a stud. But overall, they're going to have a good defense. I don't think it will be great, though. So when you combine all of that stuff together, including one of the toughest schedules in football, it's a team that I really can't nail down. And it's one of these teams that I really can't figure out whether they're going to be really good or just okay. So At the end of the day, I have the Pittsburgh Steelers going 9-8. So I've improved their record by 2 games. I recently had them at 7-10, but I've bumped them to a winning record. All right. So they're 9-8. Their ceiling is 11-6. And their ceiling is basically they're a similar team from last year, but they're better offensively. They're more balanced, and they're maybe a little bit less on defense. This is a very tough schedule, though, that they face this year. Very tough. And that's definitely going to hurt their chances at the playoffs. Their floor is 6-11. So their floor is like the offensive line stinks. Ben just loses steam. Their defense isn't what it used to be. I could certainly see that happening, but I could equally see their ceiling prediction happening as well. So it's a real tough team for me to real nail down again. Over under, I'd probably take the under 8.5 if I was forced to bet on this, although I'd probably stay away because, again, I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure about this team. So overall, I would stay away from the bet, but I would say under 8.5 because I think it's more likely that they're the third place team in this division than they are the second or the first, which would probably lead to them winning, 8-7 games, but not quite, 11, right? I think it's more likely that they dip under 9 than they go over 9, for an example, okay? So, Steelers, 9-8. Next up, we have the Baltimore Ravens. The Baltimore Ravens, guys, are a really, really good team. Overall, I think they're going to be good again. I don't think they're going to be, upper echelon as some people seem to think. But they have Lamar Jackson. They have an awesome secondary. They have, I think, a better offensive line than last year. When you add Kevin Zeitler to the mix and you get back Ronnie Stanley, yes, you lose Orlando Brown. I think it's a good offensive line. The Ravens have a good defense. They always have a good defense. It's top 10 in football, right? It's top 10 in football. Their coaching is excellent. Special teams, defense. Don Martindale's arguably the best defensive coordinator in football. Offensive coordinator-wise, they're good. John Harbaugh is super consistent. Very, very good with his decision-making. He's a good coach, and they game plan very well. The Ravens are one of those teams in my mind that I have so much respect for, their organization, for their quarterback, for their coaching. It's very hard for me to see this team missing the playoffs. But I don't think they're quite the team that some people think in terms of their upper echelon outcome of winning the Super Bowl, going to the Super Bowl. I think like last year, the same way I felt about them last year, I think they'll make the playoffs, but I think they'll probably disappoint in terms of people thinking there's something different than they are. Now, the main problem with this is early in the offseason, I thought that the Ravens could have a higher ceiling than last year because of Rashad Bateman and Sammy Watkins and getting Nick Boyle back and J.K. Dobbins in his second year. Like, I thought this offense could come together around Lamar Jackson this year and really explode. But because of the injuries and because of J.K. Dobbins going down and because of Rashad Bateman getting hurt and all this stuff, it just adds up to me of being like inconsistent and not reliable and tough to count on. And then the defense, you lose one of your best players in Matt Judon. You're getting a little bit older on the D-line. Like, you could see this defense still being good, but not great, as they've been the last 2 years. So the Baltimore Ravens, for me, guys, I think are a 10-7 team. I think their ceiling is 12-5. Floor prediction is 8-9, which they just lose, have a losing record, but they just missed the playoffs. They probably finished third instead of second in the division, and they have a record of 10-7. They make the wild card, in my opinion, but they're that team that I have, on the edge of like AFC playoffs or no AFC playoffs. If I were to take the over-under, I would take the under 10.5. I think that they could dip under that. They could have 10 wins as I have them. They could have 9 wins as I have them, 8. I think if you're below 8, you're just ludicrously wrong because that's not going to happen with a top 6-7 quarterback and an elite coach and an elite organization. It's just not going to happen. But don't expect them to be an upper echelon beast of a team. So guys, I'm going to have to speed this up a little bit because I do have to go to a fantasy draft later. But We're going to try to keep this as crisp as possible. So the AFC South predictions, let's just get the Texans over with very quickly because the Texans are the worst team in football, period. It's not even a darn question. They're the worst team in this division. I think Jacksonville is the third best team in this division, but not much better than the Texans. The division is a two-horse race, but ultimately I think it's going to be a one-horse race at the end of the day, and we'll get to why. So the Houston Texans here, guys, I have going really, really bad, like being a really, really bad team. The Houston Texans are really, really bad. They might win a game. Like, they just traded another one of their best players in Bradley Roby, right? They just traded another one of their best players in Bradley Roby, which is just crazy, man. Like, so crazy to me. They are losing all of their best players. I have the Texans going 1-16. I really can't find wins on this schedule. I really can. Honestly, I could see them trading Brandon Cooks. Like, he's in this picture right here. I could see them trading Brandon Cooks. Their record prediction is 1-16. Their ceiling is 4-13. I can't see them winning more than 4 games. Like, that would be insane to me if they win more than 4 games. You look at this team. The offensive line isn't awful, but it's not even okay. It's still one of the worst in the league. Their receiving core is one of the worst in football. Their running back group is deep, yes, but old and not very explosive. Their quarterback's Tyrod Taylor, and if he sucks, Davis Mills. I don't like either option. Tyrod is not a guy that can win games by himself. He is a game manager. Their defense is a disaster. Their front seven is the worst in the NFL. Their secondary is one of the worst in the NFL. The Texans are very, very bad. They're one of the worst teams I've seen in a long, long time, and I'll leave it at that. I'm sorry, Texans fans. I don't mean to get down on you guys like that. I'm just being honest. You'll have the number 1 pick, I think, next year if you have your pick, and you can move forward with that. Nick Caserio can continue to rebuild this team. The Indianapolis Colts. The Colts are a team that I felt like was pretty safe early in the offseason to be like an 8 to 10 win team because they have Frank Reich, they have a solid roster, they have a good organization, a good GM, a guy that puts pieces together and does his thing. But ultimately, I don't think they're going to be that team. And a lot of it is bad vibes for me, right? The defense wasn't as high in my mind as some others have them. Like, Kwity Paye, I think, will be a good player, but I'm not sure about the other edge players on this team. And in this scheme, you need a pass rush. You need a pass rush to get things done. The secondary is solid. I think it's honestly slept on. It's a pretty solid unit overall. But the defense isn't upper echelon. I think it's decent. And decent defense doesn't win you games in the NFL. It's just okay. And if you don't have an upper echelon defense, you can't carry a bad offense to wins into the playoffs. It just doesn't happen ever, really. I like Matt Eberflus, who's the defensive coordinator, but his scheme is kind of vanilla, and he's good at coaching that scheme up, but it's just very predictable, and I'm not a fan of predictable defense. Their offense is Carson Wentz, I think, is going to play. And this is the reason I don't think the Colts are going to be all that good. I don't think Carson Wentz is going to play the whole year. I don't even know if he's going to play 10 games. So for that matter, I can't predict the Colts to be a playoff team. I can't predict them to win this division. I can't predict them to be good. I'm sorry. I just can't because I can't rely on their quarterback. I also don't think their receivers are any good. Quentin Nelson is dealing with an injury. Their offensive line isn't as good as last year because they lost their left tackle and Anthony Costanzo. Eric Fisher's hurt, and you're hoping he can replace him. Jonathan Taylor's great. Nyheim Hines is a solid player. Their tight ends are Like, their offense doesn't really get me going. It's not exciting. Frank Reich is a great coach. I love Frank Reich, but I just don't think they have it this year. I think you need another year to get back to where you were. I think the Colts are trying to survive, and a lot of bad vibes. I have the Colts going 6-11, guys. This is probably one of my harshest predictions because I know a lot of people think they're going to be like 9-8, 10-7. I've got them going 6-11, and guys, honestly, this has a lot to do with Carson Wentz. Like, I just can't predict the guy to play all these games. I think he's going to play like 10 games. And because of that, Jacob Eason is not good enough to win games with this offense and this team. I just can't see it. Their ceiling is if Carson Wentz plays all the games and he plays pretty well, they'll be 10-7 and they'll make the playoffs. But that's their ceiling. Their floor is 5-12 because if Carson Wentz missed most of the year, they're going to lose a lot of games, period, because they don't have a quarterback without him. My over-under is under 9 because I'm banking on Carson Wentz, man, not being good. I'm just going to be honest. Like, the guy sucked last year and he's always hurt. I just can't go with the Colts this year. I'm not a Colts guy this year. Sorry, Colts fans. I don't mean to be harsh. It's just, I can't rely on your football team. I just can't. I can't. So I'm going with that record for the Colts. The Tennessee Titans are up next. The Titans are a team that I think some people are super high on. Like, they love the explosiveness. They see the potential in the defense. They see those receivers, that running back in Derrick Henry, Mike Vrabel being a good coach, their recent success, and say, the Titans, they're ready for the Super Bowl. Julio, A.J. Brown, give it to me now. Ryan Tannehill is the man. For me, I'm somewhere in the middle. I'm not as low on them as some people seem to be, where they're like, oh yeah, they'll win a weak division, but they're not going to be relevant. For me, like, they're going to be relevant, they're going to be interesting, they're going to be fun, but I think a lot of it is because they're in a very weak division. Their division is awful. As I just stated, I have the second best team in their division being 6-11. Like, that's disgusting. But the Tennessee Titans, like, they have so many questions to me that keeps them from being an elite team that I can predict to go far in the playoffs to make things happen. Like, too many questions. I'm not willing to bank on all of these questions. Going through them, right? You don't have depth at wide receiver, and Julio's been hurt this whole offseason. Josh Reynolds is not a number 2 receiver. Ryan Tannehill without Arthur Smith, is he going to be that same efficient quarterback? I don't think so. I still think Ryan Tannehill is good. I don't think he's great, and I don't think he can make up for bad offensive coordinating. Now, maybe they have decent offensive coordinating, but I don't think Downing, I believe is his name, is Arthur Smith. Like, I just don't think he is. The offensive line's solid, but Derrick Henry's not running for 2,000 yards again. Regression is going to come. That just happens. The defense, it could be bad again. Like, I don't really see significantly where they improved. Like, you swap out Bud Dupree for Jadeveon Clowney, sure. Whippy Kaye. Like, I don't really see it that much. I could see the potential of Caleb Farley. I like him a lot. Elijah Molden, I like him. Christian Fulton, we'll see. But, like, their secondary was dog doo-doo last year. I don't know if this defense is going to be that much better, and I have not seen Mike Vrabel. As much as I love Mike Vrabel, I got to be honest, I have not seen him coach a good defense in the NFL yet. I haven't. Without Dean Pease, I haven't seen it. The Texans, he didn't do it. He didn't do it in Tennessee. So I like the Titans. I think they're a good team. I don't think they're a great team. My prediction for Tennessee is 11-6. I have the ceiling prediction of 13-4, a floor prediction of 8-9. My over-under is over 9.5. I think they're going to make the playoffs. I think they're pretty safe to make the playoffs. And for that, I'll take the over 9.5 because their division is awful. And I'm also low on the Colts. The ceiling prediction is 13-4 because if their defense does improve with all the young talent that they have, I could see them winning 13 games because I know the offense will be decent at the very worst. Floor prediction is 8-9. Their defense sucks, right? Their offense isn't what it was under Arthur Smith. Julio's hurt all the time. I could see that happening as well, and that's exactly what I see them being. A good, not a great team. Lastly, in the AFC South, we have the Jacksonville Jags. Jacksonville, I was ready, and I even made a video about it. Could the Jacksonville Jags win the division? And for some reason, people took that seriously, like I was actually being serious about that, like, yeah, they're going to win the division. No, I wasn't being dead serious. I was just saying, oh, what if all these pieces come together? Could it happen? I don't see that happening at all. But did it have potential? Yes. After I saw the preseason, all this training camp buzz, the Tim Tebow madness, bro, they dropped in my rankings every single day, did Jacksonville. I mean, it was gross. It was disgusting. It was awful. Urban Meyer looked like he didn't even know what he was doing. He looked lost. He looked out of it on Monday Night Football when I was watching. So Jacksonville, to me, is still one of the worst teams in football. You go down the list. Yes, they improved at wide receiver with Marvin Jones, but Marvin Jones isn't incredible. Okay, the offensive line is the exact same. They couldn't really seem to block on the edges with Robinson and Taylor. They couldn't block for Trevor Lawrence. They lost their first-round pick, which was a dumb pick, by the way, because James Robinson is a better player. They don't have a tight end. Their defense is awful. I'm talking awful. They've got young players, but they've got no pass rush. They improved their run defense, but it was marginally. Like, they brought in marginal players. And that's what I hate about it. They paid marginal players big money. They paid Malcolm Brown. They paid Shaq Griffin. They paid Roy Robertson Harris. They let go of Joe Schobert. Like, you didn't pay elite players. It's not like you brought in, like, Matt Judon. You brought in Shaq Griffin. Like, I don't know about that one. I don't think they're... Like, I like Cisco. I like some of the picks they had in the draft, but it's going to be a while for this team to truly rebuild and be competitive. So for me, Jacksonville is a 3-14 team. Their ceiling is 8-9, and really their ceiling is like Trevor Lawrence just dominates. That's period. Like, Trevor Lawrence is just an absolute stud, and he just carries this team to 8 wins. That's their ceiling, but I have them at 3-14 because I think they suck all around. The floor is 1-16, the same team as last year, because honestly, I don't know how much better they are on this roster. Like, they spent all this money, and I don't know how much better they are, and Trevor Lawrence just struggles to get protected. The coaching is probably worse in their floor prediction. The over-under, under 6.5. Yeah, I'll take under 6.5 for them. You know, I thought they were promising entering the offseason, but now I'm all the way back down on Jacksonville. I'm not a Urban Meyer guy right now. I'm just not liking the vibes. So Jacksonville is not good to me. The AFC West. The AFC West, the Chargers, the Chiefs, the Raiders, the Broncos. I see 3 teams that will be super competitive, and I see the Chiefs at the top pretty clearly. But will there be a second playoff team in this division? We will find out right now, starting with the Los Angeles Chargers, who are a playoff team to me. I think the Chargers will make the playoffs as a wild card team. Justin Herbert is a freaking baller. If Justin Herbert won the MVP this year, I would not be surprised. Don't count me in as being surprised, folks. He might win it. He's that darn good. He's that darn talented. He is that darn Josh Allen-y in terms of his potential breakout. The offensive line's way better. Like, way better across the board. They improved 4 of 5 positions, and they brought back Brian Bulaga, who's probably the best player on that former offensive line. But you get the best center in football. You get a stud in the first round at left tackle in Rashawn Slater. Capable guards, right? And Austin Eckler could have a breakout year this year as like a 90 to 100 catch running back, potentially flirting with 1,000 yards rushing. Keenan Allen's still very good at football. Mike Williams, if he could stay healthy, can make big plays down the field. I like Josh Palmer. I like Jalen Guyton. Explosive offense. I like that Lombardi's in there. Going to throw the ball, rip it down the field, put the ball in the hands of Justin Herbert. They're going to score a lot of points. They're going to be tough to defend, and I'm looking forward to it. Defensively, their defense could take a massive step forward, but I'm not quite sold. I think their defense has regressed in terms of the talent, but I think their scheme is a lot better. Like, their scheme is considerably better. Derwin James is there, who could be, honestly, guys, the best player in the secondary in football at the end of this year. He is that talented. His ability to play zone, man, tackle in the open field, his intelligence for the game. He is a chess piece in a way that only Jalen Ramsey is in this league in terms of, and a Tyrann Mathieu. Like, he's in that conversation of like doing so many different things and doing it at an elite level in the secondary. You have Nasir Adderley could potentially have a better year this year. I'm a big fan of Michael Davis. I'm also a huge fan of Asante Samuel Jr., who, if he won the Defensive Rookie of the Year, I wouldn't be shocked, right? Chris Harris can still play. You've got Joey Bosa, who's an absolute beast. For some reason, is underrated. I don't know why, but he's an absolute stud, one of the best pass rushers in football. I think Tillery is going to have a breakout year this year. I'm not sure about the depth at the defensive line position. That does concern me, especially behind Joey Bosa. but I think they can get by because they're not going to rely on the front as much because Staley will be more creative with his coverages, more creative with what he does with blitz packages, and I think that will help the pass rush overall get by without like Melvin Ingram and those type of guys. The linebackers are quietly very good too, with Drew Tranquil, Kenneth Murray entering his second year, and I know they're high on that. I believe it's White, who's that third linebacker they have. So the Chargers, I think, could be very good on both sides of the football. And I think the biggest thing that people are underrating about the Chargers is how much better their coaching is going to be. It's going to be like insanely different. And this team is going to have a different identity. And that's why I'm excited about the Chargers. The Chargers I have at 10-7. I think they take a big step forward and they go 10-7. They make the playoffs. They make it as a wild card. They're not quite on the Chiefs level, but they're a good team. 13-4 ceiling prediction, floor prediction 7-10. The floor would be like their defense is just not good. They face a tough schedule. You know, the offensive line isn't there. Like maybe 7-10 is a little bit too low, but it's the Chargers. Like they seem to get hurt every year. You can never really rely on them in terms of that. So like the ceiling is like Herbert's the MVP of football and they're the Bills of last year. Like that's their ceiling. And then the over-under, I would take over 9.5. I feel pretty good about it overall just because I believe in Herbert. I believe in Staley. Those are the foundational pieces. They've got studs at wide receiver, at pass rusher, in the secondary, all the key positions. They should be a key good team this year. The Denver Broncos are next, another team that I made a video about this offseason that I'm excited to watch just because they have so much roster talent. They have one of the most talented rosters in football. And honestly, guys, if they had a quarterback, they would be a Super Bowl contender. A downright Super Bowl contender this team would be. Man, I'm telling you, like, their defense is studs upon studs. Their front seven is ridiculous. Like, Von Miller, who looks back, if you watched him in the preseason, Bradley Chubb, who is your top 50 player for the players in the top 100. Maybe I was sleeping on, but he's an awesome player. I think Draymond Jones and Mike Purcell and Shelby Harris are just beasts. And you've got Alexander Johnson, Josie Jewell in the front at linebacker. They're good players. The corners, they go 4 deep of starting caliber corners, including Patrick Surtain, who could be a stud. Like in the preseason, he looked very good. Bryce Callahan's the best nickel in football. I like Fuller. I like Ronald Darby. Justin Simmons is arguably the best safety in football. Kareem Jackson is arguably the best complementary safety in football. And Vic Fangio is a defensive genius who Brandon Staley learned from. The offensive scheme, don't love it. The quarterback, don't love it. Outside of that, I love this roster. I love this team. The offensive line is a little iffy at tackle, but I mean, this is such a good team. If they just had a quarterback, they would be AFC Championship. They would be maybe even Super Bowl. Maybe that's next year for them if they get like Aaron Rodgers. We'll see. But overall for the Broncos, I think their roster talent means they're competitive, and that means they're 8-9. They could potentially get in the playoffs this year. I just am not completely sold on the quarterback. Whether that's Teddy or Locke, I'm just not completely sold. So for that, I have them third place in the AFC West at 8-9. I have them with a ceiling prediction of 11-6, and I have them with a floor prediction of 6-11. My over-under is under 8.5. I think the Broncos are going to be a team that, let's be fair, let's be honest, like, they're going to give everybody fits, but I just don't think they're going to be consistent. The next team is the Las Vegas Raiders. The Las Vegas Raiders, guys, are going to be very, very good in terms of the quarterback-coach combination. Outside of that, I think they kind of suck. I think I might have got you there because I said they were going to be very, very good. But I like Derek Carr and I like John Gruden. Other than that, I don't really like anything else. I think they've got potential in certain places. Like, I think Henry Ruggs and Bryan Edwards, like, ideally, they're 2 young receivers who could break out. Hunter Renfrow is a pretty good number 3 option. Darren Waller is a baller, as we know. The offensive line, yes, it's not as talented, but Gruden knows what he's doing on the offensive line. He always has. I think he always will. And I don't think they're going to necessarily be bad on the offensive line. Josh Jacobs is a good running back. Kenyon Drake's a good backup. Like, their offense has the potential to still be around what it was last year. I think the offensive line inconsistencies hurt them. I think expecting Derek Carr to be as good as he was last year is probably fool's gold. So overall, their offense should regress, but I don't think it's going to be bad by any stretch of the imagination. The defense could actually be better this year. Like, Gus Bradley, I'm going to say this. I guarantee you the defense will be better this year. I actually do. The linebackers are much better. KJ Wright was a nice signing for them. They brought in Denzel Perryman via trade, Corey Littleton, Nick Kwiatkowski. It's a good linebacker group. Defensive line, Yannick Ngakoue is their best pure pass rusher who they signed. Max Crosby's pretty good. The D-tackle group isn't great, but it's solid with John Hankins and those type of guys. We'll see if Farrell can ever have a breakout year. Their cornerback group, I don't think it's going to be any worse than last year. I think Casey Hayward's an upgrade. We'll see what that Hobbs kid, who Lenny's super high on, can do at the nickel spot. Their safeties, I'm not sure about. Jonathan Abram was awful last year, maybe the worst safety in football. And Trevon Moehrig is a rookie who has high potential, good prospect, but not sure that will translate. I just think it will be better because they have better talent in the front seven and they've got a way better coach in Gus Bradley. And that means they're going to be a better defense. But I think the offense will be worse. So for that, I think the Raiders will go 6-11. Very tough division. The Broncos have gotten better. The Chargers have gotten better. And the schedule is not easy. So I see 6-11. I'm slightly higher than other people on the Raiders just because I have faith in the coach and quarterback. And I think that gives them a solid floor of 4-13, of not being the absolute worst team or one of the worst teams in football. My ceiling is 9-8 because if their defense drastically improves and their offense is the same as it was last year, maybe Henry Ruggs breaks out, they could be a team that flirts with the playoffs. I wouldn't be too surprised by that. Under 7 is probably my projection just because I see them most times finishing 4th in the division. But if they surpass the Broncos, it wouldn't be super surprising to me. So the Raiders and the Broncos are pretty close, but I just like the Broncos' talent more. And that's why I'm going with the Broncos to finish 3rd in this division. But the Raiders, I don't think you should sleep on the Raiders. If the Raiders were good this year, like, it wouldn't be that shocking. Again, like, it wouldn't be that shocking to me if they were good, but I think more often than not, they end up being not a great team. Finishing the AFC, we finish with the Kansas City Chiefs, the team that represented the conference last year. The Chiefs are still very good. You know, I made a video talking about how the Chiefs were overrated, and I think a lot of people thought I misspoke in a way because I didn't say they were bad. I didn't say they were not great. I didn't say they were not a great team, but a lot of Chiefs fans took that as like, I think they suck. Like, I don't really know what they mean by that. Like, the Chiefs are the best team in the AFC. They're the favorite to win the AFC for a reason. They've got Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce. The question is, are they good enough to beat the Bucs? Are they good enough to win the Super Bowl? That's the question with the Chiefs. It's the same way that we judged the Patriots with Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. It's different standards for the Chiefs. This isn't me talking about the Raiders. I'm talking about the Chiefs now, okay? Is that offensive line going to have enough continuity? Even if they don't, we know they're still going to be good. Even if their defense is bad, we know they're still going to be good, right? These are questions about this team, but they're still going to be good because they got Mahomes, they got Reed, they got Hill, they got Kelce. So for that, keep it simple, stupid. 13-4 is my record prediction. I don't think they're quite like 15-2 level. I think they will drop a couple games in the division this year. One to the Chargers, one to the Broncos, potentially even the Raiders who've played them tough. But they're still very, very good. I think they'll be 1st in the AFC seed, you know, just beating out the Browns, who I think I have the same record. Their ceiling's 15-2. I don't see them going undefeated, Chiefs fans. Sorry. Floor predictions 11-6. They can't be any worse than that just because of who the quarterback is and who the coach is. Period. That was, you know, that 11 wins was the Patriots floor with Brady and Belichick. That's probably the same with the Chiefs. The over-under is, I would go over 12.5. You know, if I had my life on the line and they said, Mitch, are you going to bet the Chiefs to go over 12.5 or under 12.5? And as absurd as that number is, I would still say over 12.5 because the only way they go under most of the time is if a bunch of injuries hit this team. So to me, the Chiefs are still very good. I don't want to take that to be misconstrued here. They are very, very good. The question is, will they win the Super Bowl? And we'll get to that later on. Now, guys, I'm just going to take a quick second here, real quick, a quick break here. I need to figure out what the plans are because I do have a fantasy draft. So I want to contact my dad, see what's going on first, and then we'll get back to the scheduled programming because I might actually have to cut it short and do the NFC later on, but we will see. So stick around, Gronk spike that like button, and I'll be right back. All right, guys, so just to be safe and to not sacrifice quality of programming, I'm just going to cut it short here, and I'll come back probably tonight. So I'll probably record it tonight and post it very early tomorrow in the morning. It won't be live, but I'll post the NFC preview and with my full predictions, and then I'll post a separate video going over my playoff predictions. So I'll just change the title of this video. But hope you guys enjoyed the AFC breakdown, the AFC predictions, the AFC preview. Got a big fantasy draft tonight that I got to get to. But I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure you do Gronk spike that like button, subscribe, and make sure you do check out Patreon, guys, because there's going to be a big dump of content going on Patreon. So check that out, right? Check that out. And you're going to have all the depth chart breakdowns, the team breakdowns, the roster breakdowns. That's going to be up on Friday. And I might even get a couple people to swing by for that one. So thanks, guys, for watching. Look out for that NFC breakdown and the complete predictions with the playoff predictions. That will be out very early tomorrow, along with my picks for week 1, which will be live. So thanks, guys, for watching. It's Mitch. We'll see you soon. Peace.